Hi, God.
The cost we started last week. Hey, Yanni. Hello.
This is very bad. The network is so bad.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
All right. So what I was saying is that in our discussion last week, we extensively discussed on what domestic violence is all about. We agreed, yes, we explained that another name for domestic violence is intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence, yes. Although I've not shared any material with them, we help them see things that domestic violence is within the family of, sorry, that is domestic violence is within the family of gender-based violence. We help them appreciate that. And we drew some definitions that last week, okay? So I think you can then start from there, talking about the issues that has to do with, anyway, because we will just have the introduction and the definitions. So you can take over from there and move ahead. And anytime you want me to come in as well, I will come in at interval. So I'm here. So go ahead, my brother.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Though my network is very bad here. Well, I want to appreciate the fact that my boss has already started something, and he has gone so far. He has done so much.
I'm your senior colleague. I'm not your boss, so of course you know who is our boss. Our boss is Dr. Memo. I'm your colleague.
Okay. So domestic violence is one of the major concerns for social workers. And as we all know, the profession of social work is very important and very necessary for the steady survival and continuity of our society we're living. And so, gender or domestic violence is a key area that social workers need to pay key attention to. So we have a lot to do as regard to gender or domestic violence. And so we will be looking at this gender or domestic violence, which is a pattern of abusive behaviors in any romantic relationship, which that includes marriage, dating, family, and family relationship, and all that. And we'll have so many forms of domestic violence. One of the forms is physical violence. Another one is emotional violence, and also psychological violence. And then these forms of violence, we also consider sexual violence. And these forms of domestic violence are very common with women. And that is why we'll see homes having issues, because this domestic violence is commonly carried out in homes majorly, and you see they begin to have family begin to have problems because of this violence of a thing, where married men have issues, married women have issues. Sometimes women beat their family, their wives, and all of that. So we'll be looking at them one after the other. So we'll now be looking at assault. Physical abuse may include, number one, is speeding, biting, pushing, punching. Sometimes he uses weapons. The perpetrator use weapons. Example, household objective like knife, guns against the victim. These are things we experience when domestic violence is present or is present in a home. These are things we'll see. Sometimes they use knives, sometimes they use guns against the victim. These are the weapons. Sometimes it goes by pushing, it goes by punching. Include pressure in sex. When the victim does not want sex, they coerce them for sex. Sex. Hello. So a victim, they coerce victim for sex. Sometimes by manipulating them. Sometimes by threatening. They threaten them physically to force them have sex with them. So these violence are performed in this form, in this way. Some by manipulating them, some by threatening them, some by forcing them to have sex with them. And then when victims are being forced to perform a kind of act, sex that they do not want, it becomes a very harmful act to the victim. And that is the reason why we as social workers, we are concerned about, because this act is very painful physically. Then when you are forced to have sex with somebody, is a painful act. And these are behaviors that are not really telling well on individual in a society. They are very offensive. They are not worthy of carrying them out in the society. So sexual assault is consists of wide range of conduct that may include pressure, sex when the victim does not want sex, coerced sex by manipulations or threatening or threats, physical force, and all of that. This kind of performs act of perpetrators to the victims are not palatable in our society today. So, and that is the reason why we social workers, we are frowning against them. Then the next one we looked at is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is a threat of control that consists of a wide variety of verbal attacks and humiliations. When somebody is attacked verbally and they are also humiliated, including repeated violent attack against the victim. What? When your what as a person is being attacked as an individual, is this act is one act that offends people. That offends people. Most especially, some of these acts is carried out in the home when parents begin to rain abusive words, when parents or friends or co-workers in their workplace begin to render you useless, as in making you what not, by rendering words that are not good for an individual. So they can also humiliate the victim in front of the family, friends, or strangers. The perpetrator may repeatedly claim that the victim are crazy, they are incompetent, and they are unable to do something right. So this emotional abuse is what really demoralizes people when they are faced with some of these things. It demoralizes an individual, most especially like in the place of work, when you are seen to be incompetent and when you are seen not to be able to do something right. It demoralizes an individual, and it is very humiliating. It's very humiliating. And so these are ways for where people are faced with violence. So emotional abuse is a stress of control. When somebody wants to take control over another person, when somebody wants to take a control over another person, it becomes a kind of violence. It becomes a kind of violence. Emotional abuse in domestic violence cases is not mainly a matter of someone getting angry and calling his partner names or curses. Not all verbal insults between partners are acts of violence. In order for a verbal abuse to be considered domestic violence, it must be part of a pattern of coercive behavior in which the perpetrator uses or threatens to use physical force. So here we are talking about that emotional abuse in domestic violence cases is not a matter of someone gets or not verbal insults. So that for a verbal or for a domestic violence to be domestic violence, for a domestic violence to be domestic violence, it must for domestic violence to be domestic violence, that partner, there must be a pattern. There's a pattern of domestic violence which is coercive, which is forceful. That is when a partner or when an individual is facing a forceful behavior, when a partner is being coerced in activities or in doing one or two things, a partner must face a coercive behavior, a forceful behavior, a threat, either physically or emotionally or psychologically. That is when you now consider domestic violence to be considered domestic violence. So domestic violence is not mainly a matter of someone getting angry or calling names or partners or cursing someone, but it must be to consider that act or that pattern of behavior must be coercive. It must be coercive for us to not know that yes, this is a violent act. It must be coercive. It's not a mere abuse. It may not be a kind of you getting angry over some words or attitude of some persons, but it must be a forceful, it must be coercive behavior that the perpetrator is carrying on a victim. Then we'll also look at isolation. Isolation. In isolation, here, a perpetrator often tries to control victim time, activities, and contact with others. They gain control over them through a combination of isolating and disinformation. Now, we are talking about when you are faced with an individual is faced with isolation, then the perpetrator will want to control and take over control of the person activities. The perpetrator want to take over the victim time, attention, and all of that. He want to gain control over the individual. That is where these isolations will have serious, the victim will have serious problems. And isolation is traced mainly becomes more overly abusive over time. Sometimes the perpetrator use physical to threaten her or his family or friends. Sometimes perpetrator acts very possessive. When a perpetrator possesses, they want to possess you, they want to possess an individual. So some perpetrators are possessive about their victim, time and attentions. For a typical example is seen in these our political leaders, like in the case of the River State governor, Wilson Wike and the present governor, that they are saying that Wike want to control the present governor that is on seat now. So the man is possessive. So this is one of the areas where violence or domestic violence is seen, where they begin to isolate the victim from some activities, from partaking in what they are supposed to be doing. So violence are in different ways. So we have seen that this violence is very harmful to individual. This violence is very harmful to individual. So the worry of social work is about how violence can be addressed, how domestic violence can be addressed in the society. And that is the reason why we consider the knowledge of domestic violence to be useful for us as social workers, for us to now address these issues that our clients are facing. Now, social work as a profession that think about individual in the society needs to take a knee observations to address some of these violence that individuals face in our society. Like I said earlier, that the profession of social work is important and necessary for the steady survival and continuity of the society we live in. And so the importance makes us to greatly appreciate the main objective of the profession as a helping profession to the individual, families, communities, as well as to other groups of persons who are socially disadvantaged and unable to meet their desired needs in the society. And so, as you know that the social work profession is a helping profession, to help most especially those individuals that are faced with. So we as social workers, we who are faced with them domestic violence, who are unable to meet in the society, and so we begin to advocate for these acts, these harmful acts, these abusive acts, these coercive acts, these harmful acts on people. We advocate that they are being eradicated in our society, so that individuals who are unable to speak up for themselves, those who are socially disadvantaged, will be able to function maximally in our society today. So this also will help us to know the main objective of our profession, of our professions. And so social worker is to a great extent an integral part of the client's own social system. Do you understand? Social workers or social work is a great integral part of the client's own social system. What does that mean? It means that we are part and parcel of our client's life. We are part and parcel of our client's own social life. And so, given this, we begin to look at the violence. We begin to look at the domestic violence being perpetrated on their life, on their social life, so that they will also live a good and a responsible life. They will all now begin to function socially well in the society. They will also have a sense of belonging. And so the task for us as social workers is to make our clients function optimally in order to ensure continuity in our society we live in today. So we have considered areas that domestic violence are being perpetrated on. We've talked about physical. We've also talked about emotional. We've also talked about when one is isolated. When one is isolated. We'll also be looking at the psychological aspect of it. The psychological aspect of it, that when one is being faced with violence, domestic violence, it affects the psychology of an individual in the society. It affects the psychology of individual, and that is a major reason why we must come into this particular harmful behavior as social workers. We must consider this, because when this act is being carried out on our clients, it affects their psychological being, their psychological life well-being. It is affected, and that is a major reason why as social workers, one of the areas we are concerned about, so that if one is free from domestic violence, it builds in their clients the confidence and the ability to be able to carry out their day-to-day activities in the society. It will also help clients not to be discriminated against other members of the society. And majorly women in our society will be able to live a life free, and also they have a focus or a sense of belonging in our society we live in today. And so these are these major areas that we talked about as in it concern domestic violence in our society today. And it's common, and so, as you all know, that violence or domestic violence is very common in our society today, most especially with the women. And the violence, that is why it's a gender-based, issue. It's a gender-based issue, because majorly the victims are the female folks, in our society today. And hence, gender play an important role when it comes to domestic violence issues in our society. women play a major role in our society today in concerning the issue of domestic violence. So, having said this, I don't know if I will give you notes to copy, but I don't know whether it will go well with you there. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
So I
Are
can
you
hear
hearing
you.
me? Well, I'm saying that I don't know whether I will give you notes to copy, whether it will be comfortable with you there. Hello? Hello? Chidera? Hello, Chidera? Hello, Chidera? Chidera? Are they still with me here?
So we can hear you.
Okay. I say whether we'll give you a note or
Hello? Hello, sir.
I say whether I'll give you a note or
Yes, sir. Note is okay.
you are the only one in the class.
No, sir.
So I'm here.
Note is
So we
okay,
are
but
saying we have talked about areas of domestic violence, which we talks about physical, and then sexual, and then psychological, and then emotional. So I will try to run through this thing if you can write them down. Do you understand? I'll try to run through this thing if you can write them down now. Now, when we talk about physical abuse, it may include speeding, it may include beating, it may include grabbing, it may also include shaking, it may also include pushing. It also includes throwing stones. It may also include punching and all of that. Then, majorly, some of these things mentioned above, and also you can also use weapon like knife against the victim. A physical assault may or may not cause injury. Sometimes a seemingly less serious type of physical abuse, such as push. This can result in the most serious injury when a perpetrator pushes the victim against couch or walls. Maybe sometimes they fall down. And it also make them incur some trauma, degree of trauma, and also sometimes they have bruises, sometimes they break bones, sometimes they have spinal cord issues. Sometimes this physical abuse does not cause specific injury, as in they don't have a specific injury, like as in maybe bruises or what, anything can occur, any injury can occur. No one specific injury when domestic violence is taking place. For example, one perpetrator frequently abuse his partner during meal, maybe at night or when you are taking your meal, if somebody can now spit on you, or that will make you, or somebody will disturb your sleep and all of that. It doesn't have a specific injury. So when we're talking about sexual abuse or sexual assault, so perpetrator usually they beat the victim. They beat the victim. This also they pressurize them. He also give the victim a sense of they coerce them. Sometimes they manipulate them. Sometimes they threaten them physically. So all these are forms of domestic violence that people face in the society. When you're talking about sexual abuse, the perpetrator sometimes denied victim their protections against sexual transmitting diseases. The perpetrator also message to the victim is that they have no body, their own body. It's like you don't have a say over yourself, because it's more powerful than you. And sometimes because of the weapon they use, sometimes because of the threat of life. So it makes a victim feel they don't have a say over their life. And so that is the reason why social workers need to address this issue of domestic violence. And that is the reason why we are talking about domestic violence today. Because when this thing is being carried out, the victim sees themselves as they are worthless. They don't have a say over their life. Then when we talk about psychological aspect of it, that when somebody threatens, sometimes they threaten to kill you. Sometimes when the violence is aimed at harming the victim. Psychologically, when somebody comes to you and talks to you or threaten you directly, psychologically you have a problem. So that is why sometimes people commit suicide because of the threat of life. So because someone will tell you, I will kill you. One will say, I will kill you. And the victim will be afraid. They will be afraid. Sometimes because of that, sometimes they commit suicide because of the threat of the perpetrators. I witnessed I had an experience sometime when we were doing our field work in school then. A friend told a friend that I am going to shoot you. I'll shoot you down. And the guy never took that very lightly. He was running from one place to another. You see that issue is addressed because that is a threat of life. Psychologically, the guy was affected when someone said, I'm going to shoot you, I'm going to kill you. So these are psychological violence that people face. So they need attention. They need to be addressed. So when once is attacked like that, intimidations, it becomes a very big problem to an individual. Then emotional stress of control, when someone wants to control your entire life, control your time, it humiliates you repeatedly, it humiliates you, it makes you worthless. Emotionally, you will be down, most especially sometime in the workplace or in a family, when parents rain some abusive words to children, it makes some of those children worthless in their day-to-day activities. You begin to see yourself incompetent. You begin to see yourself unable to carry out activities. That way, sometimes people become very vulnerable. People become so vulnerable because of the words they receive from friends or parents and co-workers. So this is another form of violence that affects individual in the society. So emotional abuse in terms of domestic violence cases, sometimes it's not mainly someone getting angry. So it's about when that act is being carried out forcefully, that is where it's considered abuse. That is where it's considered abuse. So I don't know with what we have said so far. You have any question? Hello?
No, sir.
Is Chidera in this class? Hello, Chidera. Chidera. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't hear this person. Chidera, I'm not hearing you.
Sir, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hello?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
You say what?
Sir, I said I can hear you.
I said, do you have area that we did not explain well?
No, sir, I don't have.
Why would you have?
Sir?
Why would you have? When we talk about isolations, when it comes to domestic violence, what do you mean? Yes?
Sir, come again with your question.
When we talk about isolation in domestic violence, what do we mean?
when the person is isolating himself, more like the person is feeling stigmatized.
So what does perpetrators do when it comes to isolation? What does the perpetrator do to the victim when it comes to isolation? Hello? Hello? When somebody is isolated. Hello? Okay. What I'm trying to say is this. Isolation is about a perpetrator trying to control a victim time. Isolation in domestic violence, it is when a perpetrator tries to control the victim time, activities, attentions. You understand? So perpetrators in this area now, they are possessive. They want to take over you. They want to take control over you. So that way, you as an individual, it's like you don't have a say over your life. Do you understand? So it affects individual. And sometimes it makes you to be separated from other people, like family, friends, or your mates, your friends, all that. Do you understand? Because you are facing a kind of, you are under control. You are being possessed. That somebody is possessing you. You are possessive. So the perpetrator is possessive. And that way you don't have your time, you don't have your attention, you don't have, you're not free. And so when you are under this condition, your life generally is affected. Do you understand? Your life generally as a person, you are what? Affected. And that is why sometimes they separate you from their main activities. They only want you or want an individual to be doing their bidding. Do you understand now? So I think we have done the physical and emotional and the psychological abuse and isolation. So next week we'll meet. We'll be talking about let me check the we'll be talking about use of children, some abusive acts that are directed against children in order to control and punish them. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
There's no question. Any question? We have here 1, 2, Amadi Precious, Chimere, Mary Ann, New Yuchenyere, Chidera, and Daniela. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right now. Where am I?